what's going on, y'all? T-Bob here.
And Jake as well.
And you're about to watch a little OTB LSU.
We're going to give you all the latest, greatest between LSU football, baseball, women's basketball, softball, and everything in between.
Bottom line, if you want to talk Tigers, keep it locked, subscribe, like it, and we hope you enjoyed. Last weekend was, of course, the Purple Wedding, right? Kind of out of nowhere after the season finally wraps up. A Black Monday of their own as LSU comes out and announces they have parted ways with the entirety of the defensive staff. And this is after seeding a lot of good kind of smoke screens and misdirection that they didn't have the money, or just being honest sometimes and saying they were still evaluating. So they fire everyone. And it's a move that you're like, okay. They kept this so close to the vest. And now we've seen Scott Woodward do a head coaching search in which he had everybody way off the scent. We've seen Scott Woodward now hold a move this big and really nobody knowing for sure what was going to happen or not. You're wondering, okay, like, do they already have their guy? Is it already essentially lined up? And I don't know the exact timelines of things. And, perhaps the truth of it doesn't matter. But it looks like LSU certainly knew who their main target was going to be. And whether or not those conversations are already in place pre-firing or they just happened very quickly post-firing, LSU immediately went after Missouri defensive coordinator Blake Baker and made him the highest paid coordinator in the entire country, $2.5 million a year. You're paying the house right at $2 million. You're now paying Blake Baker $2.5 million a year. And interestingly, guys, this is now Scott Woodward's third major coordinator contract. And you have to hope that this one works. Because Pelini was a disaster. Madhouse worked until he didn't, and it ended in a disastrous year. And mainly it was a strained relationship with the players that cost him. And now you have to hope that Blake Baker works. Now, there are some very tantalizing reasons why Blake Baker should work. There's also some interesting, if you want to go counter to the hire, about how this is a pretty exorbitant amount of money when looking at resume. Just in that, like, if you just want to glance at Blake Baker's numbers, he's not going to have any numbers that just blow you away. He hasn't been the architect of like top 5 defenses consistently in the entire country and all these sorts of things. To explain that away, I would say what he has done is he has consistently elevated the talent that he has had. And so the defenses that he had, it's been architects of, are not necessarily defenses where maybe he would have had all the pieces to be like a top 10 unit in the entire country or something along those lines. And that's why LSU represents such an opportunity for him. It's like we talked about when the job opened up. It's why it's so attractive, is because this is a place where you get that caliber of player. This is a place where you have that history. And so this is a place where now you build that statistical resume. I mean, look at what was Mizzou last year? 4th in the SEC in scoring defense, 20.8. Total defense, rushing defense, 5th in the conference. Fine numbers, fine, right? But you're like, not $2.5 million fine. But again, he changed the culture of that defense, of that team. It was a key part in Mizzou winning 11 games. There's also familiarity here. He played football at Tulane. His wife went to school the same time I did, played soccer here at LSU. When he was here as linebackers coach, he was fantastic. Damone Clark was a disaster. Remember that? That entire linebacker room was a disaster. He made Damone Clark into a top draft pick who is now starting in the NFL. Like when all the staff changeover happened, Blake Baker was one of the names that you really hoped would get kept. He didn't. He went to Mizzou and he flourished. And so now you already feel like you let a very talented employee go. What do? You want to bring him back in the building. And so I think he's consistently elevated talent. I think we've seen firsthand how he could turn a guy around. And I think most importantly, and maybe most inversely from a Matt House, his players love him. The players, and it's always tough to judge from the outside looking in, but I truly do believe that he connects with these players. He's young, he's got energy, and the players love him. Whereas really, I think the nail in the coffin for Matt House was his players' feelings towards him. So if you're just looking at numbers, I don't know that you're going to be overwhelmed here, but I think this is a very good hire. And he was number one on our list of potential DCs, and it works schematically. He's great, right? It works because he connects with players. He works because he knows Louisiana. He recruits well. He's a great college coordinator. Taylor, I can see you've been wanting to jump in. What do you got?
Yeah, so I get the whole raw numbers thing, and that's entirely true. The number that jumps out to me, T-Bob, in 2021, the year before he got to Missouri, they finished with the 113th ranked defense.
Damn.
In 2022, 56. This past year, inside the top 30.
There you go.
And he doesn't have the athletes that he's going to have here at LSU. So he went from 113 to 25-30 in 2 seasons.
Yeah. No, I mean, and
that's incredible.
Well, and that's also reminiscent of the turnaround that he did with LSU's linebackers specifically when he was here. And when you watch this LSU defense that was literally in the 100 and teens in every statistical category, even things like stop rate, the main thing that matters, an LSU defense that allowed opponents to score 56% of times when they touch the ball, I would say somebody who is good at turnarounds is in order, right?
Well, because what did we talk about? Oh, if LSU had a defense in the 60s, you'd be a playoff team.
Yeah.
He went from 113 to 56 in Missouri with a lot less athletes. Like, if he could do similar results here, you're right where you want to be year one.
Yeah, and he can recruit. And now, so now you're telling me that you're going to give him, like, how happy has he got to be to suddenly now have guys like Harold Perkins, Mason Smith. I wish I could say Mekhi Wingo, but I can't. But help to develop a young Deshaun Womack. Help to develop some of these young DBs. Guys like not DeCorey Moore. Why am I blanking? Dominic McKinley coming in, right? So there is, Braden Swinton was solid at times this last year. The point is, well, it's hard because actually there's not going to be too many defensive names that I can name that you're going to get excited about, but that's kind of the entire point, right? When every player on the team seems to be underachieving, whose fault is it? And so now I feel like we'll get a true look at how good are these cats, right? How good can Mason Smith actually be? Has he been dealt a bit of a raw hand up to this point? How good can Deshaun Womack be going into year number 2? Can you refine the Harold Perkins greatest that had him ranked as the 4th best player in all of college football heading into the year, according to ESPN? This is what Baker will prove to us as how good are these players, and then in turn, how good can he be? Because this is, sometimes they say never to catch a falling knife, right? Sometimes people will hire a name that isn't doing that well anymore, but because it's a name. Other times you'll just pay to get whatever the hottest name is. Here you're getting somebody, and maybe, or other times you'll just pay the most to get the most statistically successful name, right? Here you're kind of going with a bit of intuition. You're kind of betting on someone who looks like a rising star, but is still relatively green and relatively early on. Someone who your intuition telling you is going to be one of the stars. And Kelly's been good at this at times. Certainly a guy like Tommy Reese and others that he's hired in the past. Pretty much every DC he hired at Notre Dame, I want to say, worked out. Manhouse would be now one in the miss categories. But I think they think, like I said, I think that they just got a young rising star here and that you invest in him now and he's just going to continue to pay dividends. And also, let's be clear, the 2.5 is also a function of the market. If you want a guy who's already happy, who's already having a ton of success, whose employer already loves him, and who reportedly was going to be willing to pay him up to $2.1 million a year, you have to go way over that number to pry him away. Even with the advantages that an LSU offers over a Mizzou, you still have to pry away, considering he's already there, he's already having success, he knows the landscape and whatnot. But so I think it's a good hire. I think it's a really good hire, and it's very exciting. And it culminates with been an exciting couple of news cycles for LSU, and now you feel better going into next year than you did a week ago.
I also see a couple comments saying, well, he wasn't great at Miami. He got demoted to co-DC, which is why he ultimately came here as a linebacker coach. Yes, while that is true, Manny Diaz was the head coach at Miami. He was a defensive-minded coach. he had his hand all in that defense. Even after Baker left and he made that change, Manny Diaz still got himself fired, and now Mario Cristobal's there. So while he wasn't great at Miami, there were some outside factors. He had a defensive-minded coach who wanted to run the defense a certain way. So as of right now, that's kind of the exception, not the norm.
Well, but let's be honest, too, though. Maybe he just wasn't that good either then. Or maybe he just wasn't as good. Like, guys have to learn how to do the job. You can't. Very few people are just at, no one. No one is just at their peak the first time they get to do something. So, yeah, maybe he goes there, and I'm certain, I'm elements of what you're saying, I'm sure are true with Diaz. Absolutely. But at the same time, maybe he did things that he was like, you know what? I want to do things differently. I mean, I know Coach O ended up kind of losing it a bit after the Natty, but everything he said about the lessons that he learned from failure that led to success ring true for anyone. Failure is the greatest teacher. And so I don't care. Like you're not betting on him because he what he did in Miami. You're betting on him because you saw what he did in Miami. You saw him fail, and then you saw what he did afterwards. And you like that trajectory. So, yeah, I mean, now I guess the kind of dual-edged nature of this is with even with someone like Coach O, like he reverted to some of those things that he had learned from and that he had gotten away from. He kind of ended up falling back on them a little bit in the end. And so, that's always possible. But yeah, I don't really need to, I guess I don't really feel the need to defend his Miami time because I can just view that as somebody who failed at that point and then came back and just succeeded to a point where he made an institution like LSU be willing to make him the highest paid coordinator in the entire country. So Blake Baker, your new defensive coordinator. And at the end of the day, I think it's very clear, right? You feel better now about LSU than you did a week ago going into that bowl game. You had Garrett Nussmeier go on, put a stellar show, especially situationally, the high-pressure touchdowns to win the game. And now, even though you were tearing your hair out about that defense, you're getting a complete defensive overhaul, and Blake Baker is the first name out the chute. And now we'll wait on the other news and the other coaches that are hired and see what those do for you as well. Wow, Jake, what incredible takes.
I mean, those guys, they're just the best.
I think so. And if you think so, again, hit the like button, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notifications when we post every single day here on OTB LSU.